Hello everyone, hope everyone is doing well and studying well also. So continuing with the series of public administration, we will be discussing today some public policy thinkers. These are those areas which UPSC is asking or is likely to ask. So today public policy thinkers, okay. So two thinkers we'll discuss today. First we'll discuss Lindbloom and Dror. Later we'll discuss Dror. Okay, Charles Lindblom and Dror. Difficult to pronounce. So, see, it's been a long time since UPSC in public administration has asked questions on thinkers of public policy. Thinkers of public policy. So recently they have been asking about implementation, monitoring, review, and also some meta policy, international policy. They have been asking recent times. So this today or tomorrow is going to come, and these two thinkers have already been asked in the past years. Open a past year's paper, you will find questions related to this. Okay, so we'll start with them today. So before you start about their views about these two thinkers, one should also know, first of all, what are those two approaches to public policy? The public policy, policy formulated by the government, who gets what and how much, a simplistic definition. So there are two approaches, incremental approach to policy making, and rational approach or model, you can say rational model and incremental model. So you should specifically know what these are. So let's discuss them first. The incremental approach, just a moment. The incremental model for policy making, and we have rational model. Okay, so first we'll discuss incremental. See, incremental approach means what? See, it is about building from step by step from the existing policy with smaller degree of changes to the existing policy, and you build a new policy. Okay, you understood? This is suppose an existing policy, a little bit tweaking will happen, existing policy, tweak a bit, so small degree of changes, and this you get a new policy. This is incremental approach, that is existing policy is there, you change little bit and you get a new policy. So see, incremental approach, see if this is Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, no, before Swachh Bharat Abhiyan there was total sanitation campaign. You know total sanitation campaign, it was started by UPA, total sanitation campaign. Small changes, you include behavioral aspect here, that is focus on behavioral changes of the people, so it becomes Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Smaller changes, tweaks, little smaller degree of changes, this is one model of policy making, that is incremental approach. Okay, on the other hand, rational model is what? See, this will bring big bang changes or radical changes to the policy, that is altogether new policy will be made. It may not have a past year base. See, in budgeting also there is a concept of zero based budgeting. What is this zero based budgeting? It will start from the zero base, that is it won't consider the past year's budget. A radical change. Even if we consider from India's perspective, certain big bang reforms were, yes, everyone knows, demonetization, Demonetization, then GST law, and even if we consider the farm laws as well. Big bang changes, radical, no past year, no past policy. It is not a increment over past year, but a radical change. Okay, this is incremental approach and behavioral approach. So further, incremental and rational approach. Further, see incremental approach, why they take into consider, why they go smaller changes, not radical. Why? Because they, according to them, incremental, according to them, there is uncertainty. Uncertainty, there is lack of resources, and it minimizes the risk of policy failure. See how there is uncertainty in policy making. See, environment many times is very uncertain. Okay, and uncertain, we may not be able to understand all the facts of the policy about the environment. So how we can make a rational policy? See, I will give you an illustration. COVID-19 was there, highly uncertain environment. Everyone knows how uncertain it was. So first the diseases was not spreading so much, then high mortality, then again uncertainty, then other variations happened, Omicron, etc. So before there was what? A big lockdown, then small lockdowns, then we had the shortages of beds, etc., shortage of medicines, then black marketing of medicines, very uncertain environment. So can there be a radical policy here? We need incremental only. From first lockdown we learned something, then next lockdown, first lockdown, that total lockdown happened, and how the poor people faced uncertainty, they started to walk, then smaller lockdown, specific area. So incremental changes. Okay, though lockdown initial was radical, then incremental happened because it was a very uncertain environment. Okay, also there is lack of resources. Government of India always has lack of resources. Lack of skilled manpower, lack of resources, because there is lack of skilled manpower, lack of capital, finances, lack of finance. Then how if there is this lack of resources there, how there can be all facts of the policy and the problem will be known? How analysis of the problems will happen? If there is lack of skilled bureaucrats or think tanks or specialists, this is not possible. You can't foresee all the problems we are having. You implement one policy, then another new problem starts to happen because lack of skilled. See, demonetization was implemented, then new problems started to come. Because of lack of resources, we were not able to visualize all this, and demonetization ultimately failed. Demonetization was a rational policy, a big bang policy. That's why incrementalism was needed to deal with black money. The failure of this policy, lack of resources. Okay, and also electoral bonds. We all know electoral bond scheme. Here too, lack of resources and lack of skilled manpower resulted in misuse of electoral bonds. It was used to reduce the influence of black money in politics, but in the end, black money, then white money got converted through shell company and reinvested into political fundings, crony capitalism. So lack of resources. Okay, so because of this, we need incrementalism. Now, what rationalists say? That yes, there may be this all the issues, but this can be overcome with think tanks, specialist people, Also technology, yeah. So today AI is there, machine learning is there. So more science-based policies can be made. That is fact-based policies. Right amount of data, right data can be fed in the policy formulation. So policies will be right. Machine learning, etc. AI will easily foresee all the challenges the policy may have. So this can be yours. So rational policy is possible. Okay. So also then see now which is this approach now. So who all will follow? So incremental will take into account the value aspects. Okay. Because there are uncertainties, etc. So value aspects. Value means it's a field of political science. Okay. This is all rationality. Fact base. Are you able to recall some thinker? Yes, Simon. So it is public administration based. So thinkers are here Simon, rationalist model. Even Dror is also a rationalist also, though we will discuss some other aspects of Dror also. Here political science. So Lindbloom, even David Easton will come here. Easton. So and this adopts a descriptive approach. Incrementalism is descriptive approach, and this is a prescriptive approach. Hope you know what is descriptive and prescriptive. Descriptive is what is, that is how policy is made. How policy is made because of this, all these uncertainties there, this way policy is made. What ought to be is prescriptive, what should be. That is, this policy should be rational. How policy can be improved. How policy is made. Okay, so this is briefly the differences between incremental approach to policy making and rational approach to policy making. So we'll discuss some advantages and disadvantages also of incrementalism and rationalism. Incrementalism. So incrementalism, what are the positives? So positives are minimizes risk, then policies become acceptable, no such radical changes. Thirdly, it understands the significance of values also, and so step by step changes is also big practical also. Easily accept, not much protest etc. will happen with incrementalism policies. But what are the negatives then of incrementalism? See, it suffers from Beagle's fallacy. You know what is Beagle's fallacy? Beagle is a dog. Dog used for hunting. So what the problem with the dog is, it can smell properly, but it cannot see. Eyesight is weak. So they suffer from Beagle's fallacy. So even if it is obvious that radical changes can be brought upon, rational policy is possible, still they won't take radical changes. They still go for incrementalism. So understood? So Beagle's fallacy, he has a weak eyesight. So they too have a weak eyesight and a foresight. They cannot see that obvious and radical changes are possible. Still they will go for incrementalism. Okay. This incremental changes promotes what? Not radical changes. So it promotes a bureaucratic culture. Bureaucratic culture is all increment, no radical. They resist reforms. little changes are there. Even ARC2 we know has recommended to disband this structure of Government of India and create a new structure based on principle of subsidiarity. This is radical rational policy which is registered by the bureaucracy. That's why incremental approach. This is the negatives of incremental approach. So what are the positives of rational policy making? Whatever the negatives are of incrementalism are positives of rational. Anyways, so it promotes innovation. It makes the organization dynamic, change oriented. That is NPA 1, change oriented. Promotes the growth of think tanks. Promote the growth of think tanks and specialization. These are the positives of rational policy making. So what are the negatives now? Whatever positives of incrementalism are negatives. Yes, it promotes risky policies. Policy failure may happen. Policy failure. Yes, policy failure, risky policy without considering the value aspect will result in policy failure. Yes, farm laws, policy failure. It did not consider the value aspect in farm laws. Farm laws, total policy failure. The value aspects were not considered. They did not consult the farmers, did not consider their viewpoints. They did not consider the values of farming and corporatization are antithetical in India. Farms and versus corporates. These are antithetical in India. These were ignored, so policy failed. Similarly, demonetization. Policy failed. So this way, they are different. So this is the brief you should know what is incrementalism and rational policy making to understand these two thinkers. Okay. So let's, oh God. So let's start with Lindblom. Okay, Lindblom, Charles Lindblom. So Charles Lindblom, basically he is a incrementalist thinker of public policy. Incrementalist. Okay. So he subscribes to the view that to make a policy, changes should be small degree of changes. Small degree of changes from the existing policy. This is incrementalism. This is what he talks about. Small degree of changes from the existing policy. And his famous works includes Science of Muddling Through, published in 1959, and later he one more publication was one more paper he published, Still Muddling Through. After this was criticized, then he published Still Muddling Through, criticized. This was criticized, then he Still Muddling Through. published in 1979. So this is a bit a brief background of him. He's an incrementalist thinker. He talks about smaller degree of changes from the existing policy, step by step. So you get a new policy, science of muddling through. Because why he says why we need a smaller degree of change? Yes, he says there are certain constraints to policy making. Constraints to policy making. The constraints identified by him is uncertainty. Okay. Second is lack of knowledge. Then third is inter-organizational and intra-organizational issues. Inter-organizational. Intra-organizational issues, you write issues or limitations. Okay. So yes, uncertainty already discussed that how they operates in a very uncertain environment. The environment is very uncertain, especially in a country like India. Environment is very uncertain. So such a diverse population, number of challenges. So it is very uncertain. People will protest if we have a radical policy, like the farm laws was a radical policy. People protested. So a very uncertain environment. Also COVID, we discuss holistically. COVID also. There is a lack of knowledge. Yes, lack of knowledge, lack of other resources also. It's very difficult to know everything, to have facts, all the facts that will go into this policy machine and write policies. A rational policy or a science-based policy will come. Limited resources, limited knowledge. Also, there is inter-organizational and intra-organizational issues. Yes, very much relevant in see inter-organization. There is a center union government, number of state governments, state 1, state 2, state 3. Every state will have some issues if we have a radical changes, and also number of policies also one state may accept, one may reject, difficult to implement, such as the new education policy. See, many southern states strongly oppose. Tamil Nadu too opposed this new education policy. Also that NEET exam, this was also opposed by states like Tamil Nadu. They said we have our foolproof mechanism better than NEET. So yes, intra-organizational and intra-organizational limitations. So how can you have a radical policy or rational policy? It should be incremental, step by step, from smaller degree of changes. So because of these issues, Lindbloom says in his work Science of Muddling Through, because of this there is incremental is there, and also there is partisan mutual adjustment. Partisan mutual adjustment. Partisan mutual adjustment in policy making. What he says, see, that is policy making is not systematic. There is procrastination. Resulting in delay. Procrastination, you keep on thinking, you don't do, there is no inertia, resulting in delay. Because there are a number of stakeholders. So it is not not in a step by step manner, not in step by net, that is not systematic. Step by step there is incremental changes, but not systematic. So it is more like bargaining and negotiation happens. Bargain and negotiation happens in policy making. I'll explain each of them. See, it's not systematic. There is no proper system. Every stakeholder is meeting. They are giving their viewpoints and their formula. No, the participants of the policy making are already partisan. You understand partisan? Partisan, that is, they want to maximize their own interest. So they will just keep on bargaining, haggling for maximizing their interests. They become partisan. They will keep on bargaining. See, it happens in budget also. All the departments will bargain. Will get this much major share, this much share, this share. Everyone wants maximize their share. Every state also want maximizing this. So this is not systematic. Who will bargain the harder will get maximum allocation to that state or to that department. There is negotiation. Because of all this, many times the policies also get delayed because so many bargaining keeps on happening, negotiations keeps on happening. It's not possible to have a rational and radical policy. Timely policy, it results in delay. See, the GST law, it was initiated by UPA and it took more than 10 years to be implemented. See this procrastination and delay because what? States were reluctant to give up their taxation powers. So there is partisan mutual adjustment. They will bargain, they will negotiate to maximize, and this is very much reality also. In India also, now you take this year's budget. So higher bargain, higher share. Two states got lot of money, Bihar and Andhra Pradesh, because they can bargain, they have the leverage of being a coalition partner. Partisan mutual adjustment, they were partisan. They already just wanted to maximize their share, not that equitable distribution. See, many forums are also there, interstate council. Here also a lot of bargaining happens between state and the center, states and the center, be it a Niti Aayog also. This year meeting happened, they again bargaining, partisan, they wanted to, they were not given time, some were given less time, one chief minister also walked out, some didn't participate also, all partisan mutual adjustment here. So what he says, because of this bargaining and etc. happens, then a policy happens after this. All differences get integrated, and we get a policy through partisan mutual adjustment. So integration of differences, that is, yes, MP Fullet. Okay, something new will come out through. So this is not systematic. What he intends to say, the partisan mutual adjustment is incremental based, it's not systematic, as there is procrastination, delay and etc. Okay. So this is what it is he talks about in his first paper, Science of Muddling Through, that is policy is muddled through. Policy is muddled through. Muddled through. You understand muddling through? There are a lot of mud is there. Through this all unpleasant environment, you have to muddle a policy, to fix a policy, to formulate a policy. This is sad stuff. But what happens now? He said, and then he was criticized by a thinker called as Amitai Etzioni. He criticized the Lindblom's science of muddling through. Was criticized by Amitai Ajjoni. What Amitai Ajjoni says, see, okay, there is bargaining, negotiation, etc. happening, and there is partisan mutual adjustment. But he says this partisan mutual adjustment works in such a way that those who are powerful, the participants, those who are powerful, are able to bargain more. So it does not address the inequalities. Inequalities in policy making is not addressed. See, those who are powerful will bargain more. Yes, they can blackmail and they will do lot of things to get maximize. See now, yes, we discussed just now budget, this year's budget. So, two people were very powerful now in the coalition government. The CM of Bihar and CM of Andhra Pradesh. So they can heavily bargain for this budget. There is inequality. All states needs funds from the center, but this is an unequal scenario existing. So because of this unequal scenario, they were able to get more share, more or substantial share from the budget. So it does not address this inequality in partisan in this negotiation and bargaining. Also in many in scenarios in India, see, poor states are there and there are some rich states. So poor states, rich states will say, we are giving so much taxes, contributing so much taxes our state to the union government, we need more facilities. Poor states say, we don't have anything, you should give us more funds. So rich states will say, oppose this. That's why it depends on which government is on the center, which state will have more leverage. So this is partisan. This is partisan. This is not based on equality. The negotiations are not based on equality. See, even in international sphere, the United Nations or Security Council, these are partisan people. 5 people are there, the powerful permanent members. Already, it may not cater to the needs of the poor countries, because this is not on the equal footing. These people are 5 powerful people for powerful countries, permanent members of UNSC. So this way, this is not an equal negotiation or bargaining happening. It is partisan. It is unequal. Okay. So now, what Charles Boom reacted? Lindblom accept this criticism to a certain extent, accepts this and concedes also. So he publishes another paper, still muddling through. So he publishes another paper, still muddling through, 1979. Okay, so here he says, yes, these inequalities can be addressed. He gives a concept of analytical incrementalism. Here he gives 3 types of incrementalism. First is simple incrementalism. Second is analytical incrementalism. Third is disjointed equilibrium. I will explain each of these. So, this is after the criticism, he publishes another paper, still muddling through, and this incrementalism he gives. So, he basically says, depending on the situation, adopt this incrementalism approach. Simple incrementalism, he says, the existing policies shouldn't be, the new policy shouldn't be, shouldn't be much different from the existing policy. That is, he says it should be a very small change should be there between the existing policy and the new policy. So, it is simple incrementalism. Okay. Second, he talks about analytical incrementalism. Here he says, you, while partisan mutual adjustment is happening, you adopt a middle position. That is, see, stakeholders, suppose this is powerful states, these are not so powerful states, state 1, state 2, state 3, state 4. These powerful states can bargain heavily with the union. They don't have much bargaining power. If union that is central government concedes to this bargaining power, the policy will largely favor them and ignore them. He says, when the bargaining is happening, you adopt a middle position. Favor each of the components of the adjustment, of the partisan mutual adjustment, in such a way that both will think, both as in both sectors of the participants will think it benefits both. That is, it's a win-win situation, he says. That way, middle position you adopt. Okay. The third, he talks about the disjointed equilibrium. So, he says the equilibrium will come automatically in a disjointed manner. That is, where in economics you have an invisible hand to guide the market. Similarly, something will guide and it will happen, and an equilibrium will be achieved in policy making as well. So, he doesn't leave it to the invisible hand to achieve this equilibrium in policy making. That is, he gives some methods also how to achieve disjointed equilibrium. See, disjointed means it doesn't appear step by step, it is not systematic. It is disjointed, it is broken, not 1, 2, 3, 4, it is 1, 5, 6, that way, but an equilibrium will be achieved. So, this is disjointed equilibrium, and he gives some methods to achieve this. First, he says, I will write down first, then I will explain. So, limit the number of alternatives. Okay. Second is limit the consequences, limit the options and consequences. Third, focus on the problem. not goals. Fourth, focus on the problems, not the goals. Fourth is combine values, analysis of problem, with policy goals. Fifth, adopt trial and error learning. Trial and error learning. And sixth, he says fragment partisans in policy goals. Okay. So this way, he says, you can achieve disjointed equilibrium. First, he says, limit the number of alternatives. So don't explore a lot of alternatives. More alternative will result in more delay and more procrastination, and it will lead to more differences. It's difficult to achieve an equilibrium. Okay, so once you limit the alternatives of the policy, the consequences will automatically limited. So limit the options and consequences. Third, he talks about focus on the problems, not on the goals. See, so see, demonetization happened. Focus was more on goals, that terror funding will be, black money will be over, black money in politics will also be stop funding, counterfeit notes will be abolished. But what about the problems? Problems or how you will implement this, people's inconvenience. This was not focused. Only goals were focused. So policy failed. Also, farm laws, focus was on corporatization of farms, promoting food processing. But what about the problems of farmers, resistance by the farmers? This was not focused. Policy failed. Focus on problems, not on goals. Whereas Swachh Bharat Abhiyan policy successful. Problems were focused. Open defecation, issues with open defecation. So largely a successful policy. It's a combined values analysis of the problem with policy goals. So value aspect, that is values also you take into consideration. So here you can connect with social cultural factors that you can take into consideration, analyze the problem, and with policy goals, values are considered. So it becomes a successful. So see in midday meal, many were given eggs, some state banned eggs. So bit of value aspects were considered here. But yeah, it's again against the freedom of choice. So problems, and you integrate them with policy goals. So there will be a holistic policy. So this is now trial, error and learning. That is, you implement policies on a smaller scale first, pilot basis, not the entire country. Then you learn from that, and then you again improve. So this is also done in the government of India. It is done. Smaller 1 or 2 districts they will first apply, or a state they will try, then learn from those errors, and they will implement the further the policy, and they will improve. So fragment partisan win policy goals. What is this? You have partisans, partisans, different stakeholders trying to maximize their interest in policy. They are partisans. So you involve them in policy goals, that is policy formulation, not just formulation, but also you involve them in policy implementation. So here what happened? Individual goals is equal to common goals or organizational goals. So the success of the policy will also ensure the success of the implementers also. Yes, integration of individual goals with organizational goals. If the policy of the union government gets successful, then policy of the state government also gets successful. So this way you integrate them, involve them in policy formulation, then also implementation. Then this is more of that transactional influence of McGregor or interactive influence system of Likert. That way it talks about fragment them. Okay, so this is what is Lindbloom. So yes, a very important thinker of incrementalism. Also, so positives, negatives, criticism you take from those initially what we discussed, negatives of incrementalism, that is will come the negatives of Lindbloom also, that is Beagle's fallacy. Then it promotes bureaucratization, even when radical and rational policies are possible, still it won't promote radical big bang changes, still it will go for incrementalism. So this is what is Lindbloom. See, it will come, it has to come, it will come one or this year or next year or some other year, it will come, because in the past it has come and it has been a long time UPSC has asked this about Lindbloom. Okay, now this is clear. Hope Lindbloom is clear to you. Okay, see first he gave his views in this paper, Science of Muddling Through, that is policies are muddled through partisan mutual adjustment, partisan mutual, there is bargaining, negotiation, etc., because there is limited resources, etc. Then he was criticized by Amitai Adjoini, which so he considered that it does not do anything about the existing inequalities in the society. So he considered to those criticisms and published one more paper, that is Still Muddling Through. There he gave the analytical incrementalism. So it has three components: simple incrementalism, so policy should be not much different from the existing policy. Then he gave about analytical incrementalism, that is adopt a middle approach to policy making, and then disjointed equilibrium, that is disjointed, not step by step, and equilibrium is achieved by among these stakeholders. And he gave six methods, that is, first is minimize the number of alternatives. Next, he says limit the options and consequences, focus on the problems, not on the goals. Then combine values analysis of problem with policy goals. Then use trial and learning, trial and error learning. Also he talks about use those management techniques also, management by objectives, PERT, etc., not just trial and learning. So here it will come PERT, etc., also you can use PERT, PERT, right? Program evaluation and review technique, management by objectives of Peter Drucker, we discussed in one of the sessions very holistically. And then he talks about fragment partisan policy goals. So this is what is Lindbloom. Okay, so now we'll discuss Dror. Dror. See, Dror also, it has come in the past years. So again, long pending question. Dror gave his model of optimum, normative optimum model, normative optimal model. It is also called as normative rational model. It is also referred as optimal normative optimal, normative rational model, or optimal rational model. It's one and the same thing, different name. Don't get confused. It is Dror only. Okay. So Dror basically he is categorized as a rational model of public policy. He is categorized into, but though he criticizes a rational model also, but it's considered optimum rational model also. Okay, so he's under that difference we said he comes under the rational. Okay, rational model of public policy. That is, radical changes can be possible. So Big Bang and those limitations can be overcome. So he is of that view. Limitations of knowledge, uncertainties, etc. can be overcome. So what he says, let's discuss his views. Firstly, what he does, he criticizes them both. He criticizes the rational models also and incremental model also. So what he says, so first his views on rational model. He criticizes them. He says rational model ignore the extra rational aspects of policy making. So what are these extra rational aspects? So that is, it ignores values, it ignores socio-cultural aspects, it ignores superstition, it ignores religious aspects in policy making. These all are ignored in rational models. See, rational is all fact-based, right? Simon, fact-based. See, rational model is also called a synoptic model of policy making. So remember this also. If this name comes, then the same thing you have to write. This all is ignored in policy making. Ignore extra rational features. See, they all say there should be specialists, there should be rational facts-based, specialist knowledge, think tank should be there, but they ignore these aspects. Ultimately, so policy is not just limited to formulation in an headquarter. Policy also involves policy implementation in a society, and society consists of all this. Okay, he criticizes them for ignoring them. Next, he also criticizes the incremental approach as well. The incremental approach is also criticized. What he says in this incremental approach? Yes, that only, same thing, that even in obvious situations, incrementalists won't promote Big Bang changes. Even in this also they won't promote. Yes, we know they suffer from the Beagle's fallacy. So he criticizes them also. So what he provides a solution then? he says the policy making, while the policy making should involve the 4 aspects. First is it should take the rational element also, rational aspects. Okay. Second, he says takes extra rational also. Rational aspects also, that is rationality, then extra rationality, it also incorporates incrementalism. Third, he says that policy making should also incorporate managerial aspects, managerial techniques. Managerial techniques, that only MBO, PERT, etc. This is very important in monitoring also. Fourth, there should be policy sciences. Science. So it will improve the predictability in policy. Predictability, it will become more systematic. So policy making should include all this. Rational aspects, rational aspects. Rational approach to policy making, extract rational aspects, that is values, religion, socio-cultural aspects, this should be included. See, if you go through the economic survey or you go to the budget, they also invoke religion also. So they try to incorporate extra rational aspects. Okay, so midday meal also, so social cultural aspects also they will include. So whatever food local people like, they will incorporate there. Some states will incorporate eggs also, some won't incorporate eggs. So extra rational aspects. Superstitions also, people include so and so policy should be launched on so and so time, etc. Managerial techniques, yes, for monitoring, etc. Even Government of India uses this. Policy science approach. So he was also like Laswell talked about policy science. So he talks about policy science. He gives 3 stages. Okay, three broad components, and it has total 18 stages. Okay, we'll discuss that. So in a way, he talks about the aims and objectives should be very clear, and the stakeholders should be identified who will implement policy. That should be the basic crux of policy making and entire policy cycle, not just making. Okay. So, okay, you write here policy cycle, don't write just policy. Okay. So for policy sciences, he talks about 3 basic components should be incorporated in the policy. So it is about meta policy, policy formulation, policy implementation. Meta policy. What is meta? Not that meta. Meta means it is a policy about a policy. The policy about policy is basically a macro policy. So it is about processing macro policy, broader policy. It will process values, beliefs, facts, situations. This will involve in meta policy, processing all this, and you develop a big macro policy. So what is the macro policy of Government of India? Vikasit Bharat, by 2047, macro policy, or Atmanirbhar Bharat, macro policy. New India, also one macro policy. This is macro policy. Okay. Now, what is policy? This policy formulation will be what? It will be like policy form exploring alternatives, policy goals, sub goals, prioritizing, this is policy formulation, exploring alternatives, goals, sub goals, priorities, sub priorities. See, see, this budget is also a policy formulation only. Budget, who gets what and how much comes under policy formulation. This year budget, you see, they have also prioritized everything. The budget is arranged such as priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. So prioritizing is there. This is policy formulation. And what this policy implementation involves? Review. First will come implementation, monitor, and review. Okay, this is policy implementation will have. Implementation, yes, monitor and review. Yes, government monitors and reviews its policy. Many think tanks also review government's policies and submit a paper, publish that which is Acer. Acer also reviews government's policy. In education sector, government also monitors its own policy through that Pragati dashboard. Pragati, and Umang is also there. These are monitoring tools. This way they monitor. So what Dror says, this 18 stages of 3 components of policy will bring policy sciences. This is what basically Dror talks about. He criticizes first all this rationalist and incrementalist also. Then he integrates those all policies into one. All those model into his model, that there should be, you should take rational aspects, irrational aspects, extra rational aspects, that is values, etc. It's more like postmodernism. Okay, you know postmodernism, public administration, and managerial techniques also, and he talks about policy sciences. Okay, and there he gives a three components and 18 stages. So this is what it is, and yes, his positive is that relevance is that, see, he integrates both approaches, right, rational and incremental approaches, which yes, very much relevant. We have to consider both while making policy formulation. Also, it talks about policy sciences, which always has been the quest of public administration. What was Woodrow Wilson's first in his essay? One of the components in his essay was science-based administration. This is also a theory aspect. You can link its relevance, and criticism is what? So, criticism. So its 18 stage model is very complex, and difficult to implement. It also talks about taking into superstitions, goes against the rationality in public administration, more value based. However, science can be achieved with science, with superstition, etc. So these are his criticism. Okay. So this is what Dror and Lindbloom is. We'll also briefly discuss upon. Okay, we'll discuss some differences between Dror and Simon. Okay, because both are rational also and optimum rational. See, yes, one example I forgot to give. See, Government of India had initially had a policy of all electric vehicles by 2030. So this is rational, Big Bang. But did they consider the social and cultural extra rational aspects? No. So they revised. 30% of the all vehicles in India will be EV by 2030. This is rational, this is optimal rational, normative optimal rational. Okay, 30% EV. And there is also incrementalism. Incremental how? See, BS1, we started with BS1, BS2, BS3, border stage, so incremental. So normative, optimal, rational model. Okay. So we will discuss now some differences between Simon and Dror. Similarity is that the both talks about rationalism and managerial techniques. Okay. So Simon. So he talks about what? He talks about behavioral. He talks about extra rational aspects. Talks about cognitive aspects. He talks about normative. Okay, normative, yes, he talks about values, optimum, normative, etc. He talks about fact-based only. That is, it should be only rational. And here talks about normative, optimal, normative, rational. Normative, optimal. Optimal. So what is optimal depends upon the social cultural aspects. Optimal, that is rationality, can differ from society to society. Here he states only one rationality, that is fact-based rationality. Okay. Behavioral, cognitive, normative, extra rational. And yes, Simon is prescriptive. And he is prescriptive plus normative. Prescriptive. That is descriptive aspects also he includes. So this is the brief difference between Dror and Simon. If it comes, write this. Okay. So write similarities also. Similarity talk about rationality in policy making. That is the similarity. We also talk about managerial techniques. Similarities, rationality, managerial techniques. Also policy sciences you can connect also. Science. You wanted to make a physics of public administration. That is the criticism of the positivist approach by Simon to in public administration. Positivist approach to build science in administration. Anyways, okay. So see, this two aspects are there: incrementalism and rational approaches to policy making. See, there are certain theories also which combine both these approaches. So one is, see, that punctuated equilibrium model punctuated equilibrium model. Okay, this combines both this, okay, incrementalism and rationalism. what this model says, see first, okay, I'll draw this. Okay, wait. See, what this punctuated equilibrium model says. See, this way. See, first there will be incrementalism, but time will come, then there will be some radical reforms. Then again incrementalism, then again radical reforms. Then incrementalism, then radical reforms. This is a mix of incrementalism plus rationality. See, incrementalism, radical reform. See, Industrial Revolution 1, IR 1 came, then it went on incremental changes, then IR 2 came, Industrial Revolution 2, then 3 came, then 4 came, then 5 will also come one day. So this incrementalism happened, then in that England, that Industrial Revolution came, then changes, then again this. So this is Industrial Revolution. This is about punctuated equilibrium. For example, GST also was an radical change, but now then slabs, etc., keep on adding new slabs, then bringing more items under GST, revising the GST rates. This is all then incremental changes. So radical, then incremental, then something will happen, then again new some changes will brought. They will bring in GST, then again radical, then incremental. This may bring local taxes also. They may give some share to local government also. That can be a bit radical also. This way it is. So a punctuated equilibrium model. Also there is one more model. See, mixed scanning. Mixed scanning model, which is, this is also a combination of incrementalism plus rationalism model of policy. Mixed scanning model was given by Amartya Ejjiani only, with the critique of Lindbloom. Ejjiani. Okay. See what he says. See, he gives an analogy of a weather system. Okay. So weather forecast. He says there are two cameras, camera 1 and camera 2. One camera will, so suppose this is one region where you have to forecast a weather. So suppose this is India. Okay. So India is not possible in any other world also. It's not possible. You have micro cameras in every region. So what the weather forecaster, they will take a macro picture first, and something they find some issues, that some erratic weather pattern, torrential rains will happen here. So the second camera will focus specifically on this, not all the areas, so specific areas. So this is rational, entire area, and this incrementally they will focus here. So C1 plus C2, this is incorporate incrementalism plus rationalism also. So okay, then this is mixed scanning model. Hope this session we discuss this, then Lindbloom plus Dror, plus we discuss those incremental models plus rational models, and also we discuss some combination of both of them also. Combination, that is punctuated equilibrium model and mixed scanning model by Amartya Ejjiani. So hope this was helpful for you, and do go through this, or do remember this. It may come this year or next year. Okay, then study well and happy learning and all the best. I guess mains is just Pubad paper is just few days away. Hopefully this will help then.